Today we're talking about migration to Yellowbrick. And if you're familiar with Yellowbrick, you already know why you should consider migrating. You already know how fast we are. It's one of our biggest selling points. We have a very unique architecture that allows you to query terabytes of data in milliseconds at a price performance ratio that other data warehouses just can't touch. But for those of you not as familiar with Yellowbrick, you may be wondering, why are customers migrating to Yellowbrick in the first place? Our customers sometimes see hundreds of times better performance, and that results in the ability to scale in any dimension, as you can see here. But the best part is we do it while saving our customers a lot of money. So how is this possible? Can a different software architecture be that much better? And the short answer is yes. Yellowbrick looks like Postgres to the outside world, which allows easy integration with your infrastructure and works with all your BI tools, but the back end is very unique. The Yellowbrick database employs a unique streaming architecture that plows through billions of records in milliseconds and scales to multiple petabytes. We've run competitive tests against every other data warehouse there is, and for the price, none of them can even come close to matching our performance. And in today's webinar, Systech will be demoing how their software, DB Shift, allows you to migrate your schema, your DDL, your ETL, your SQL, your data, which greatly reduces the time and effort involved, so you can more quickly take advantage of the benefits of the Yellowbrick system. So here are some examples, and these are live customers running running Yellowbrick, and Catalina and Tioco, they were testing against Netezza. And what you've seen is, as you can see in most of these cases, performance of over 100 times faster. At BMW, it was SQL Server. At Allscripts, it was Netezza and Redshift. And at Melco, it was Oracle. And at LexisNexis, it was Hadoop and Greenplum. And this one's kind of interesting because they had migrated from Greenplum to Impala first, and now they're on Yellowbrick. They had strict performance demands, which were sub-second, and the queries were mostly ad hoc. And they had this monster fact table. It was over 100 terabytes compressed and had over 900 columns. Some of the queries were taking 3 minutes or more on Impala, and they had severe stability issues. They tested against both Impala and on Hadoop and Greenplum. And with Yellowbrick, they were able to see 20 times better performance on 1/4 the number of nodes, as you can see in the chart. That they gained stability and reduced the latency of their fraud detection queries, which, as you can imagine, is pretty important when you're selling fraud detection as a service. Now, most of their queries are running in sub-second. They're able to handle the morning rush of 100 concurrent users without any issues, which had been causing them a lot of issues prior to Yellowbrick. So from these examples, hopefully you've gotten a sense that there's obviously something very unique about Yellowbrick that might be worth a second look. To summarize, amazing performance, no tuning, and the best price performance ratio in the industry. That's why people are migrating to Yellowbrick. So how do we make that migration easy? Well, I'll let Systech show you. So let me hand it over to Ramki so he can show you their migration tool, DB Shift, in action.
Thank you, Ed. Hello, everyone. As Ed pointed out, Yellowbrick has the best price to performance ratio in the market. We have been part of an assessment of modernizing their data warehouse and analytics environment for a major insurance company. And in that mix, we had Snowflake, Yellowbrick, and Redshift. And Yellowbrick is the clear winner. And not only from a performance perspective, it's not about getting performance by scaling to hundreds and thousands of nodes. It's just cutting down the cost and giving better performance is always Yellowbrick's aim. But the migration of a data warehouse analytics environment itself is not very simple. Typically, an ecosystem of a data management analytics environment looks like this. You have data pipelines or extract, transform, and load processes that load data into the data warehouse from multiple sources. And the sources could be internal and external to the organization. And some of these processes might be complex, might even read data from unstructured or semi-structured data or make API calls to external sources and so on. Typically, an enterprise will have thousands of these data pipelines that load data into the data warehouse. On the other side of the spectrum, we have applications like Looker, Tableau, Power BI, MicroStrategy, and so on which produces visualizations and dashboards to extract meaningful insights from data. Those applications sit on the other side, and most of the time they read data from the data warehouse. So an ecosystem of data management analytics has these three pillars at a high level. There might be other downstream applications and systems where data is federated to from the data warehouse, but at a high level, we have data coming into the data warehouse through data pipelines and data being consumed through applications. So these three pillars also have to be migrated along with the data warehouse. And in this case, what we are talking about today is migrating from SQL Server to Yellowbrick. So in addition, enterprises might also decide to take this opportunity of modernizing their data management analytics environment to change platforms, or move to the cloud, or move to a hybrid environment, and so on. So with all these factors, it becomes really complex, time-consuming, and costly affair for migrating or modernizing a data warehouse environment. So we have a well-defined methodology which kind of helps customers or enterprises to migrate to from SQL Server to Yellowbrick in this case, or from any legacy data warehouse environment to Yellowbrick. We start with a discovery, which is a detailed inventory analysis of objects that need to be migrated from a data warehouse perspective, all the touch points, both data pipelines that feed data into it, and also the data coming out of the data warehouse. We also apply automation here to identify obsolete objects that are no longer need to be migrated, objects that are key, objects that need to be re-architected, and so on. After that, we decide the topology and configuration of Yellowbrick, and Yellowbrick offers on-prem, cloud, as well as edge locations. So it becomes important for enterprises to decide how their architecture should look like and number of nodes and so on. In addition, the most important aspect is the security part, both in terms of ACLs, access control list, and user setup and encryption and so on. All those things will be taken care of during the configuration phase. Then comes the majority of the workload, which is migrating existing stuff into Yellowbrick. And then the final important step is the validation, detailed validation of all of the data that's been migrated, all of the touch points that got changed, and then final production deployment. And I'm going to introduce you to our utility, which we call as DB Shift, where we aim to achieve a minimum of 70% automation in this migration. And we saw a tremendous cut down in terms of cost and effort when we migrated for the major insurance company, which I was talking about before. So I'm going to show you how DB Shift can cut down effort and cost and apply automation in migration. So ideally what we do is, it doesn't matter in terms of if you're migrating from on-prem or legacy data warehouses like SQL Server or Netezza or Oracle or Teradata to a modern cloud-based or hybrid data warehouses like Yellowbrick. We have a sequence of steps that we need to do. First, we perform what we call as a structural migration, which is all about your structures, data types, mapping of objects that are in the source data warehouse to Yellowbrick, either it be stored procedures or functions and indexes and so on. Some of them are straightforward migrated to Yellowbrick, but some of them need to be re-architected. So we identify that and we group this as a structural migration. Then we have the functional migration, which is your data pipelines, which includes your SQL scripts beyond your data warehouse. It's being used for data management in data pipelines, like what we call as ETL scripts and ETL mappings. Finally, we have the connectivity-based migration, which is basically tools like Tableau or MicroStrategy or Power BI, where majority of the reports use a connection like JDBC or ODBC to get data from SQL Server. But some cases, there might be some free-form SQL reports that also need to be migrated. And then we do the validation of these reports and data that's migrated. And as I said before, DB Shift can help at least cut down your migration effort and cost by 70%. So as part of this demo today, I have I'm going to just target the data pipeline migration. So I have two environments, identical environments, one in SQL Server and one in Yellowbrick. And I have a set of data pipeline processes defined in Informatica, which is a very popular data management platform available in the market. So the goal is we have some processes defined in Informatica and that they are loading data into SQL Server, and we need to migrate that into Yellowbrick using our dbShift utility. So let me just quickly go through the Informatica at a high level for people who are not familiar with this platform. It's very similar to any other ETL platforms in the market. So all the ETL tools have at least two layers. The first layer, a lower layer, is called as the mapping layer, where you extract data from tables, you transform it, and then you load it into the target. So in Informatica, that layer, that set of processes is called as a mapping. And I'll show you some of the mappings just to get an understanding. So here you see like 5 mappings. I picked up a very simple vanilla environment just to for the demo purposes, but typically you'll have like thousands and thousands of mappings doing the data management processes for an enterprise. For the major insurance company that we work with, they had about 3,000 to 4,000 of these processes that need to be migrated. So these processes, individual processes, their structure is very similar. You have a source, and then we extract data from the source. We do a lot of transformations, and we finally load that transformed data into a target. The sources and targets are defined here as part of the Informatica processes as well. Now, in addition, some of these processes might have SQL overrides to overcome the limitations. So in this case, I have a SQL here, right? So the problem with these SQLs is some of them can be directly run on Yellowbrick, but if it's SQL is very specific to SQL Server in this case, we have a data type called small date time, which is not exactly mapped in Yellowbrick as the same data type. The SQLs also need to be migrated. So if you have thousands of these processes, the effort involves changing these source and target tables. As you can see from here, the source is Microsoft SQL Server, and also the target is also Microsoft SQL Server. So removing this, adding the Yellowbrick source and Yellowbrick target is a time-consuming process, and also the converting the SQLs. So that's where we come in. The dbShift utility can automate this for you. So the second layer of Informatica is what we call as workflows or sessions. Let me quickly show you that. So the workflows and sessions are an orchestration layer on top of mappings. So if you have several of these mappings, you can actually orchestrate the flow of these mappings in terms of, like, for example, in a typical data warehouse data load process, you load into staging, and from staging you load it into dimension tables first, and then you load it into fact tables and then aggregate tables and so on. So if you want to sequence the processes and also to if a process fails, it should stop there, it should send emails, all those things can be done as part of workflows and sessions. So let me just quickly show you a workflow here. So this workflow is a wrapper around the mappings that we saw before, and it has all of the connections and defined here. Right. So as you can see, the source is a DB, what we call as a relational reader, which is Microsoft SQL Server. These also need to be changed as well. In some cases, you might also have some SQLs here, as part of what we call as a pre or post running of the mapping. If you want to run another SQLs, you will have SQLs here as part of the sessions as well. So the effort involves migrating these as well, right? So let me just quickly log into the dbShift utility. So the goal is for us to migrate from the source repository, as we call in Informatica terms, to the target repository. So let me just quickly log into the target repository just to show you that so the target repository is empty at this point. We don't have any objects here. So let me just disconnect from here. So the input for the dbShift utility is an Informatica repository objects. So let me just quickly go here. So it basically reads all of the objects in that repository, and then it gives you an interface. You have an option to convert all of the objects in one single shot. You have also have the option of selecting individual objects and migrating them. So typically we see that there will be a few jobs, few processes that need to be migrated again and again, after correcting issues. So in that case, you have the option of selecting individual objects and migrating as well. So it gives you an option of migrating mappings, sessions, sources, targets, and workflows. So if, for example, if I select a mapping, it also gives me information about what kind of a mapping is that. It's classified into simple, medium, and complex based on the transformations it has. You do have the option of selecting individual mappings or individual sessions or workflows and migrating. So let me just select this one single mapping here, and I'll convert to Yellowbrick. So as you can see behind the scenes, it's changing the sources and targets. It's changing the SQL that I saw. So this mapping has been successfully migrated. So let me just log into the target repository. As you can see, this was empty before, so we have this mapping. Let's take a quick look at it. Now the source has been converted from Microsoft SQL Server to Yellowbrick ODBC connection. The target has been converted from Microsoft SQL Server to Yellowbrick application connector, as you can see from here. And the SQL has been converted as well, right? So the equivalent of small d time in Yellowbrick is timestamp, so that's has been converted as well. So this is one single mapping. Let me just connect from here. So you have the option of migrating all of the mappings in one shot. So let's go ahead and do that. So all of the mappings are being converted. No issues. Let's quickly log into the target repository. So you have all of the mappings migrated the same way that we saw that single mapping here. The same is the case with workflows and sessions. Let me just quickly go back. And you can select individual workflows, or you can select all, and then you can convert to Yellowbrick. So in mappings, the source and target has to be changed. Workflows, we saw what needs to be changed as well. So all of the workflows have been successfully migrated. So I'll just log into the workflow. So the workflows have also been migrated. So let's take a quick look at that. One single workflow. So the targets have been changed from SQL Server to Yellowbrick as well. So that's the, imagine you have thousands of these processes, and if you can apply this automation of migrating, and also if you can apply the automation on the validation, it's going to significantly cut down the cost and effort required to migrate your ecosystem, data management analytics ecosystem from SQL Server to Yellowbrick. So hope that gave you a good insights into the value of dbShift. With that, I'll hand it over back to Ed. Over to you, Ed.
Great. Thanks, Ramki, for a great demo. So if you'd like what you saw today and you'd like to test it out for yourself, there's a few choices available. For Yellowbrick, you can either reach out to the account team and we'll work with you to scope out a POC so you can test it out in the cloud or in your data center, or you can go to our website and sign up for a free test drive. We'll set you up with a cloud instance, and that's free for 7 days. Or if you're interested in looking at DB Shift, you can go to Systech's website, and their URL is sitting there on the screen, systechusa.com. Scroll down and click to the Let's Go button, and you can test out theirs as well.